Hey,
Whatever. How's it going?
it's all right. I'm trying to. I thought I'm experimenting with ads, which I guess probably totally makes sense. But so I'm just trying to figure out. I'm in a chat with Baylor, trying to figure out.
In Waco, the university in Waco.
No, it's someone named Baylor who's probably in Bangalore or somewhere.
Nice.
Um, so I'm just trying to see what's going on here. Hey, but let me see if I can do this while I am talking to you. Actually, I meant to mention you in a passing thought. Sorry, click the three dots. Which is um, I was thinking about I was thinking of you and so Green Pages project and as a um as a Green Pages project for Green Pages and for the fashion project of using those as topics for general seminar.
Hmm.
You coming as a as like a whatever co-host or something like that, um uh and can be a participant, which I think could be interesting, but maybe as a co-host. And we do one on the future of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
That's your thing. We do one on the future of fashion. That's Kemp
True.
and Drew. And we do it as a we do it as a as the hyper collaborative thing. So I mean, just for on the back office. So I mean, it's not a shit ton of money, but it's money. But so we whack it up just as we would with any other near future laboratory project.
That'd be awesome. That sounds like fun.
Okay, so we just need to find a time. I love that idea.
Yeah. I mean, I'm about to be.
And we could we could figure it out. Like you might say like, hey, actually I don't want the $73. Let's just bank it for production costs, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah, yeah.
or whatever.
What's your idea, Thomas?
Was Julie?
Hold on. It was
Oh,
my idea.
what's
Julie?
your idea, Julian? Sorry. I thought, wait a
Whoa,
minute.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Julie Mass. What is your idea? Collective idea.
Thomas, can you tell him? Because I'm like, now I can't. Now I realize I can't do two things at once.
See, this is what happens
Yeah.
when I show up 3 minutes late to the meeting. I'm already behind.
Julian was suggesting we do it like a kind of Green Pages and fashion magazine, two separate general seminars, one for Green Pages, one for the fashion magazine.
Oh yeah.
So one where we talk about future of cinema, and I've been invited to come on as a co-host, which was would be fun.
Yeah, it'd be super fun.
And then yeah, just as like I think that would be great because then we
Well, they're two very different audiences, right? There's a bit of overlap, but I think
Mhm.
those are two very different places that you can explore and really take advantage of what each area has to offer.
Yeah, I also think it would be a fun way to like I don't know, just hear more thoughts and ideas for the thing.
Mhm.
Well, that's the main
Yeah,
point. So we
yeah,
can do it because it's actually it's a it's a good conversation, I think, and good general seminar, good going to the future kind of exercise, and we we get some more ideas
hmm
for content. And if we really kick ass, we have a podcast,
right.
like a general seminar kind of after action report minisode or whatever.
Yeah,
um
it works in a lot of ways, and like just more people interested in potentially snagging a copy once it's ready is also fun. So that'd be yeah.
yeah, so yeah, more people kind of like, oh man, this is great, like I see it, I get how this works. Good deal.
I think that it could be a fun thing in general, just as more. This is like, I don't know. Have you done this before, where like you're involving a project more directly in a general
Um,
seminar? I feel like,
well, only when it's been like for a client, which wasn't like a public
yeah,
general seminar,
yeah,
which was the point, right?
mhm,
This is where we're gonna. This is this is our our approach to workshopping,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
our no post-it notes allowed approach.
No thinking,
The only box you can bring is the box of Entenmann's donuts.
no thinking, just imagining.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Okay, let me focus on what this guy's saying because I was number 5 in line. I was like, cool. This is great. This will you should go by. They have the queues for the chat stuff to chat with support, and then it changed to 6, and it was like, what was that moment? What movie was it? Was it Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he looks at the clock and the clock goes? No. It was what's the Tom Cruise? Risky Business. He looks at the clock and he's like anxious to leave school, and the clock goes the wrong way. That's what I felt. Launch campaign.
My wife thinks that the step counter on her smartwatch does that sometimes, and she's desperately disappointed by the sudden demand for more work to be done in the day.
I remember thinking that it counted my bike strokes, and I was really excited, and then I realized that it didn't. I thought I was gonna have like a sick average steps per day, but there's no way to hack it anymore.
I wonder if you could. If it's an Apple Watch, I know the kind of people and teams that they use to check it. One of the things that you could work on is sort of tweaking the periodic motion so that it has the proper kind of discontinuity and jerk that happens in normal gait. One of the ways you can do that is by building a specific mechanical linkage to be able to kind of deliver that, but it may still need to be attached to your arm. So you could build like a rig that that holds your arm as you're biking, but it would make for a kind of a funny ride. Perhaps not
Sounds like
out of fun balance.
Yeah. Well, could be. Aaron, it was good to see you.
Yeah, that was a random moment. I know we had like this long stare. I was
I also had like my hood fully on, like it was like a. I was like,
"Oh,
oh
it's good." And I'm like grumpy, like my kids, like for school, like biking.
yeah. Do you also live in the Mission?
Yeah, I'm on 15th and Cap.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I was right outside my apartment when you barked by, so that's where I
Okay,
am.
nice. Yeah, and that's the school that I teach at. That's right near there.
Oh no way.
Yeah, Cesar Chavez.
Cool. I love the playground there. The like massive mural
Oh, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
at night on a rainy day, or like after it's been raining. It's really cool. It's like really beautiful there. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the school I teach at now, and I'm trying to teach there over the summer too. Like be a part of the shared schoolyards program and do like public programming on like Sunday afternoons.
Cool. Small world.
Yeah, it's the damnedest thing.
So I'm gonna have to bounce at 10:20, so that's an hour and 10 minutes. Just FYI. But so what do we need to talk about?
I got one.
Okay, go on.
Okay.
Or
so
maybe should we make a list? So Aaron,
yeah,
you got
let's do an
something?
Agenda.
Yeah, an agenda. Oh shit, man, we're screwed now. Where's Tony with the notebook
Structure.
on his lap?
Structure.
Yeah, on his lap.
Who's
sitting in
Mr.
the corner.
Structure?
Christ Almighty. All right. So Aaron, you got something? Should maybe I can give a quick status. Give a quick status update on what's it called, the Android thing. Still want to figure out, and I've been thinking about, but haven't had a lot of time to really kind of get into it on any kind of mechanics we can build in to get on this situation of the armory liberating the trapped creative consciousness from the structure box or whatever. Like how do we build a network that supports what we're each trying to do and what we're trying to do collectively? What is the mechanism by which we can use the mechanisms that are out there to really promote each other? I'm gonna use all the foul language because I think we're doing it for a good cause. All the stuff that we're all, I think we want to do, but either we don't know how to do or we shy away from doing because we're kind of like, well, actually, my retweet won't matter. I only have 340 followers. It's just the worst reason not to do it. I was talking. I had a coffee call that was supposed to be 20 minutes that went for like over an hour yesterday, and I started getting into. So I was like, how do we, how do, and I was asking genuinely, it's like, how do you build that kind of self-supporting mechanism where people are just like so excited? Jed, you and I were talking about it a bit when we had our $23 juice and coffee yesterday.
I just did the $5 coffee. You splurged.
Yeah, no, I got it had to be at least $11 that juice. It's just like, what the fuck. But I what ends up happening is you just drink it slowly throughout the day.
Yeah.
But it was worth it for the company. Let's say that it was worth it for the company. I had this call with this guy, and I was kind of talking about it kind of came up. Oh wait, hold on. Baylor's giving me a $50 credit code to apply to my account. I definitely gotta copy that for later. So what popped into my mind was like, okay, I'm saying this just I'm saying so there's a bit of fiction here, but I don't think there's a whole bunch. So like, I'm not a fan of this guy at all. It goes without saying. So like the day after Trump got elected, like all the Republicans went into a secure room, right? No one was allowed, no press, no phones, nothing. And they were in there for like a day, maybe two. And then they came out of it, and it's like it was, I'm imagining into what happened, but it's like this alignment, like, okay, here's how it's going to work, right? And I don't know what, who knows, they might have just sat there and like drank whiskey and smoked cigars. Oh, he doesn't drink or smoke. They ate Entenmann's, or McDonald's was catered in. And part of me feels like it's like that was the thing, like whatever it was, it's like, okay, let's get in line. Like this is, like this is our shot, whatever. I'm not excited about this stuff at all, but I'm curious about these mechanisms, because it seems like it's just this wall of uniformity. Like no one gets out of line. If they get out of line, it's like then you don't hear from them again. It's like the mafia in this kind of sinister way. Are there mechanics that, because I think we're good people. I think we're righteous. Like we're fighting the good fight around all the things that we're interested and curious in. We're not especially political at all, really. It's like, hey man, there's some cool stuff. There are cool ways and new mechanisms for doing this kind of work. And it almost feels like we all like enjoy each other's company in such a way that like we come like on our own dime to a call on a Friday, like we're here for each other. But then how do we move it to the next level? Like how do we become like almost like this uniform force where people are like, oh my God, look at these guys, these people. They're onto something. I love what they're doing. It's beautiful. Like this guy Dre does this kind of stuff, and he's part of this, this Church of the Subgenius. I don't know what we are.
I mean, crucially, the thing with the Republicans is that there's always money changing hands.
So that's they have a value exchange mechanism where they're like, okay, if I just keep doing this for the next 16 years, then I'll be able to get that property on the ninth hole in Myrtle Beach, and life will be good. And my kids' private school, we're just going to turn them into another numbskull. Will be paid for it. So what is our value? What is our value that is sufficient for us? At this point. And by the way, I do think that there's plenty of filthy lucre out there for us. Plenty. Like it's we're in this like trough now, but I mean, most of us have been alive long enough to realize that like, oh, there's always another side. At some point, if we can build enough of a sense of a common vision and even just a common vernacular. Here's our language. Here's how we describe it. And we say it over and over and over and over and over again. This is the party line. Literally, it's a line or a couple lines or paragraph, or like when any opportunity you have comes up in a work meeting, you get, that some of us end up getting called in to do conferences, or talks or that kind of stuff. And don't turn those down. Like, it's what a pain in the ass. They don't even pay me. No, I'm going to do this because this is the opportunity for me to, say this, and get these ideas and get them inserted and circulating into the conversation. And I feel like if we articulate, if we come up with that, and we do it, and we do it enough, and we expand that kind of network of people who are doing it, I think the other side of it is I was just writing some people are doing a book, and they said, hey, could contribute, answer these two questions. And one of them, it's only semi related to what I'm talking about, but one of them was like, it was something like, what are the strategies for, what strategies do you recommend to maintain visionary futures thinking? And so I'm like, here we go. Like I'm gonna tell them like what the strategy is. But the question before was like, how could one bring futures to life? Both of these are opportunities to say like, it's time to imagine harder. Like that's been my kind of line, and say what that looks like. But in that question, I keep coming back. You guys have seen me do this like a zillion times, like my jogging book. Like I keep it at hand, and I said like, this for me is this is the moment that we're at now. We're at the moment that Bill Bowerman was at, 1967, where he's trying to teach people that jogging's a thing. And I'm sure most people were like, wait, what is it called? What does that mean? I mean, they might be like, I've heard about it, like ships jog, right? Is that what you mean? Like no, this is something different. So he's got to teach people how to do this. And I feel like we're at that moment. And the thing that I noted parenthetically in one of my responses to these questions was like, yeah, we need to do what he did, but we need to do that for creativity, for imagining, for like new approaches to thinking about futures. And I said this in there, I was like, it's worth noting, like jogging was nothing in 1967. Now it's a $200 billion industry, right? And there's room for everyone. I mean, their new whatever, anything, people probably weren't even thinking about like joggers, that which is part of the uniform now, or not, it's like casual wear. Kent probably knows better. I got joggers for Christmas. Love them. Just wear them around. So,
as part of as somebody who's been part of various forms of, I wouldn't say shady, but backroom discussions and dealing.
Brando, oh man, we're gonna do a tell-all.
No, it's just without money changing hands in one of those rooms, without there being any kind of quid pro quos being discussed, the way that those groups work is that there's a general agreement that people can sort of haggle about things inside that room, but that it's better for everybody, no matter what the decision is, that everybody agrees that it is the decision on the way out.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's because there's a hard power structure, but sometimes it's just that, you know, the line has to be decided, and it should be, you know, concluded once that's finished. And you know, if you don't have unanimity, or if you don't have some kind of way of satisfying everybody, you don't leave the room. And that's one way that people do those kinds of things. The Green parties in various countries around the world still try to work on unanimity. There's a really neat YouTube video and book by a sociologist who was attached to the rover program, the Mars rover, called Seeing Like a Rover. And she talks about the unanimity kind of panel discussion that they use for deciding the agenda for the Mars rover on a given day. And that's pretty awesome too. Yeah, it's just, you know, just that everybody agrees that a decision is better than no decision or two decisions, and then you just decide what it's going to be. If you can get that commitment, then you can make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It even popped in my head because I'm trying to find a way to use this I think there's an opportunity to get my friends in Detroit because they were like, yeah, I mean, you know, let me know what you want to do. And so that I was just thinking, you know, the Frank Lloyd Wright House, like get a bunch of us together in the Frank Lloyd Wright House. Cause then, you know, it would feel like slightly like we're, you know, a secret meeting happening. I love that kind of stuff. But it's also, you know, like alignment amongst the other, the current kind of existing practice, you know, like the commercial practices that do this stuff. And, you know, I just think of like my, you know, like where we've never had alignment, and it's always sort of confused me. Like I've always been like, oh, is it like the same reason that, you know, Frog and IDEO and Huge and whatever would never get in a room and try to, you know, align on anything? It's like, no, we're competitors. We're not going to share anything. And this actually happened within the Discord. Like this was like maybe a couple years ago. Like I reached out to another member in the Discord who isn't as active now. And I said, like, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice by not kind of collectivizing our, you know, our rhetoric and just sort of sharing, you know, like I don't think that it felt like, no, you know, the response was like, why would I want to do that? Like, why would I want to share any information about how I run my business? And it was almost at that point I was like shocked. I was like, oh, yeah, am I weird because I assumed that might be a useful thing? And it took me a while to kind of get over that. I was like, no, you were on point. You knew what you were talking about. And this is just, you know, the misalignment is on not, you know, this other person not being able to see the value of doing that, or assuming that maybe like, well, I don't know. There's only a little bit of cheese out there, so why should I share my strategy for getting the piece of cheese? I'm like, you're not seeing the bigger picture. There's a huge piece of cheese out there. Huge. We just need to do the work of telling people like, you need some of this cheese. And I think people actually do. Like, I don't feel like I'm trying to sell people vitamin water or something. Like I think there's real genuine value, and trying to find the way to articulate that value is also something that I think you know, I think we could collectivize. Like I thought that post I did earlier this morning on that, you know, it's time to imagination HBR article. Like it was kind of amazing, like, you know, because this is how these guys think, is that they're able to articulate in enumerated lists like the ROI. I'm like, fucking, that's amazing. That's great, because that's a really powerful way. There are two powerful ways of describing things. It's like you make people feel something, which I think, you know, I can do a pretty good job of, and then you give people, you know, that's the kind of like, oh man, yeah, I feel what you're saying. That's cool. Yeah, no, you're right. Imagination. Yeah. And then what I'm not good at is saying like, and number one, this is how it's going to benefit your organization. Number two, this is how it's going to benefit. Number three, this is how it's going to make your costs go down or whatever. And here's a case study, and this is how it affected the benefit of the organization. But I think all that stuff is there. It's just a matter of like saying, coming up with it, coming up with a line, coming up with the case studies, saying it over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and just not stopping. And pretty soon people are hearing it, and they're kind of like, I don't know, let's give it a try. Like, I'm hearing it and I'm feeling it. So let's get on it. And the reason I'm saying this is that I want it to be way easier for all of us, either collectively or individually, as we kind of like, evolve and develop our professional and creative practices to do this stuff. And like I said, I think there's plenty for everyone. There's plenty for everyone. There's, I mean, is there only one commercial entity that's willing to pay someone to be a UX designer? Where did UX designer come from? We look at it as like jogging. But back in the day, people would be like, "What's UX? What are you talking about? And why does it need to be designed? I'm not seeing this. I just have my cousin do HTML. I don't understand the big deal." And then so people start realizing, actually, it helps to have someone who has experience and insight and knows the vernacular and knows these tools and is look at that doing beautiful experiments with new modes of interactivity. And then someone's like, actually, if you do it this way, someone commits to a purchase quicker. People are like, oh shit, that's UX design. Get me some. I want a whole platoon of these people. And I feel like, that could happen with whatever you want to call it, like futures design, design fiction, speculative design. It's just that it's terribly balkanized now, and no one. Well, I think it's no one really supports the other guy. No one's like. I don't mean to. I'm not saying this is a trash talk at all, but it's like, So Superflux came out with another printing of their tarot cards. Like, amazing. I got a box over there. They don't have any of my design fiction cards. Now, I'm not expecting them necessarily to, but I don't understand why they wouldn't. And I don't care. I don't need their money. I mean, as a matter of fact, if they had said like, "Hey, Julian, I know you bought our tarot cards, a few years ago. Could you send me your box for free?" That'd be an interesting conversation to have. Or just wonder like, why. What am I missing? Like, why wouldn't you want to support this?
I mean, the very first thing is, does everybody even agree that you're doing sort of the same or a comparable thing? And that's like the very initial premise is the construction of the room and who's in it. And sometimes it takes a while for people to agree with that. Same as like when people independently invent differential calculus, and they'll haggle for a couple of decades about whether they're the same thing or whether they do different things. So that's unfortunately a pretty difficult step, because everybody who invents something that wasn't there before has had to, by definition, do it through a very torturous and sort of personal journey. And that's the sense in which actually this is that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes me feel way less special,
Yeah. No. I'm not chuckling in a dismissive way. I'm just kind of like, well, hell yeah. This there's some days where this sucks in a beautiful way. Just any given moment. I mean, I wouldn't, and I don't feel it actually, but it's like, it would be. I don't imagine like giving up at all. But sometimes I wonder. It's like, man, it's like, what would that be like? It was just kind of like, what, I've had it. I don't. It's funny. I don't even know why I'm saying that, because it's not even really in my vernacular. Like, I've never thought that. I'm like, this is happening. There's no doubt in my mind it's happening. Not a single doubt. It's like, I wouldn't even know what to do with not to do it. Like, ride my bike more. It's like, yeah, well, yeah. What do you do when you're done riding your bike? Do you should I take up drinking or hard drugs? Like, what the hell? No, this is it. This is happening. I just realized, Aaron, I just totally ran over you. Totally ran over you.
That's all good. All right. Well, this will be, I can dovetail because I've got responses that are also segues.
Okay.
I just promoted the Near Future Laboratory to the executive director of this organization called Livable City here in San Francisco. He's like,
Oh, do they have a do they have a Discord? I think I'm in a Livable Cities .xyz
So there's
Discord.
Livable Cities, but this is Livable City.
Okay.
And they are the organization that we partnered with to do this Skating on Native Land event. They do open streets events in San Francisco. They close down streets, et cetera, et cetera. They recently split that portion off though. So that's its own separate organization. Livable City remains an advocacy and sort of policy first organization. The executive director was on the board at BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, for 20 years. Now he's been at Livable City for like 14 years. He's like an old hat politician, knows everybody, refers to everybody by first name, and wants to do everything from like, putting like, a native lodge at the top of Twin Peaks to like, making a better Valencia Street to making a, circulation network through Golden Gate Park. He's got all kinds of ideas. And operationalizes them in various ways. His sort of thing is like he'll meet with a bunch of different types of people, everything from directors of various organizations to the staff, and sort of like get them all to be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and then they'll say, oh, who are we going to have to lead this conversation, and then they bring him in, right? So he'll like sort of do research and then say, hey, you guys need to pay attention to this, and then they say yes, and then they basically hire him to put together a team to lead projects. So to him, I floated this idea of putting, because like there's like a city plan for the future that they made in like I think it was in 2004 or something like that. But they, it's been a while since they've like had an updated vision of the future, and it was like a 40-year plan, and so they're like halfway there now. So I was like, hey, well, what about a magazine from the future? Like a city guide from the future. And so it's sort of a way of like backdooring the skateboard conversation, but just like more broadly about San Francisco. So anyways, that's an update on that. There's a plug has been plugged. So we'll see. He, his eyes lit up when I mentioned it. So we'll see what happens. But in talking to him about convincing the city to do anything around skateboarding, he's like, the best thing you can do is have another example of another city that's done it before. Because that's a great way of, being like, oh, sure, there's precedent, can do, no worries. So all of that dovetails into this grant that I'm looking into applying for. I just woke up early this morning to go to the information session. This is through Providence Streets Coalition. It's a collaboration between the Providence Street Coalition, Smart Growth Rhode Island, and the Department of Health. And this grant program just opened back up. And it's a quick turnaround. Like the application is due Wednesday, so very fast. And basically, I learned a little more this morning. Julian and I met earlier this week, but I can sort of say a little more now. There's 3 tiers. There's a whole like high funded one that's like $10,000 to $25,000, and that's only for municipalities that already have a green and complete streets policy in place. So in Rhode Island, that's limited to Providence, Newport, and this other small town. But you can do things for like the $1,000 to $5,000 range in any city, and those are for like basically making green and complete streets presentations to town councils. So my sort of proposal here for this group is that we put together a presentation for the town council of Bristol, Rhode Island, which is the city where Comet Skateboards has its manufacturing facility. It's also the city in which that has the longest standing 4th of July parade in the country. It's a very strange place. It's also one of the top 2 towns alongside Newport, Rhode Island, that had the largest slave trade in the north. It's a very weird place. A lot of composite stuff gets built there. Everything from America's Cup sailboats to military things, aerospace stuff. It's just a weird town. And so I found their 2016 comprehensive city plan, and the word bike is all throughout it, in as much as like they have bike paths that already exist, and the word bicycle exists in the key of a lot of the maps that they have. but the word skateboard doesn't exist, the word scooter doesn't exist, and notably the word wheelchair doesn't exist. Which is weird in a place that's all about, you know, veterans and, you know, war mongering in various ways. So anyways, my proposal is that we put together for them something called basically the Midspeed Mobility Network. And the crown jewel of the Midspeed Mobility Network would be Midspeed Main Street. And I'm interested in the possibility of like leaning into their sort of patriotism and showing them how like their long-standing parade would be even better if they were to prioritize other modes of transit other than just walking and biking, and like really thinking more holistically about these sorts of things. So it's a short little application. You know, few questions, pretty brief. It's only a $5,000 grant. So, you know, my thought is like you make like a deck and perhaps a pamphlet, or, you know, either a pamphlet or like a little, you know, trifold brochure or something like that. But it's, you know, the Midspeed Mobility Network for the future. And just sort of showing them how good the city can be with that in place. So it needs a budget. That's the most essential thing. I have other ideas for projects too, but this one seems like most in our wheelhouse. So curious to know if anybody has any thoughts or interest in working on this. You know, it's not necessarily creating designs for streets necessarily. It's more, you know, it could be for like a milieu, but we could also potentially just like present some designs, you know, and just sort of like put them into visuals and things like that, right? Where like they're not necessarily like you should make this thing, but they're just in the background of the whole thing. You know,
Could like would a design fiction, I mean, first thing I thought of, I love this. I love the Midspeed Main Street. That's a really nice combination of words. But what that got me thinking about is those caricature style Main Street maps that you see, where all the buildings are exaggerated with like a bit of a wide angle look. And I just imagine, okay, well, what if the design fiction was that it was the Main Street map, but it hinted at all the mid-speed features. So it talks about like, you know, what the skate cycle wheelchair lanes are, where, and you're, oh, there's no car lanes. Oh, you park your car on the exterior and you jump into a mid-speed vehicle, and then they can reminder in our Main Street, here's what the various street signs mean, because we have slightly different rules because it's a little different than the rest of the world. And the other thing too is that maybe there's curbs are all gradual, because the intention of mid-speed is that you don't have to slow down to get onto a different surface. You can just ride up onto the different surface. So that makes everything a lot more accessible, and that shops can be ridden into. I think there's some really interesting ideas of this nice map that could be that you would find at your local tourist information place. You would open it up and it would be cartoonish and caricature-ish, and you'd have different brands, and they'd be all toting their features, how they are part of this Midspeed Main Street.
I know that you said that it doesn't have a lot of time before it needs to go in, but I would love if there's time for a session on it. One of the things that jumps out at me when you said for the future as well, it made me think about different uses. And one of the things that a very, very flat street means with very good surfacing is that you can move all kinds of different things like equipment and robots along it. And it reminded me of the Media Lab's kind of reconfigurable spaces project, the ability to be able to move objects that are sort of furniture around in a space like that. And also for the purposes of things like filming, a lot of the time people will choose filming locations based on the ability to put equipment on it and move it around and things. And so having the idea of a dynamically recodable and reconfigurable kind of city street would be really useful from film production and being able to actually envision the functional use of a space. And also thinking about that in the context of the pandemic, like if you're in Mountain View in South Bay, Castro is closed to traffic on most of the places now, and it's now these tables that's permanent. But a lot of people kind of took a look at some of these spaces and said, we have other uses for city streets, and even if it's temporary, being able to kind of really establish modes that can be sort of injected into the various mix of things that can happen in a place would be exceptionally valuable for folks. And having dead level, dead flat streets with gradual curves means so much more from the imagining of the objects and furniture and things that can be moved on them as well as a consequence. So I'd love to jam on that a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, and because it's like an industrial town, things like moving massive boat holes, down Main Street and things like that are like, legitimate concerns. And San Francisco has this whole thing about delivery, right? Like when are deliveries going to happen to businesses and stuff like that. So like there's a lot of the classic sort of like stopping points for a lot of these projects is like, okay, parking and deliveries. Those are the major two. The other one, and especially in somewhere like Bristol, is like water, right? So in San Francisco it's like surface flooding, stuff like that. But in Bristol it's like sea rise, right? Because it's right on the water, so like the whole town is going to have these regulations. But we can also talk about the ways in which this mid-speed mobility network is also like climate ready, and maybe everything's a little more elevated or something like that. But finding, there's a classic issue with like the bike lane flooding on the coast, and so those curved edges that I've sort of been championing, those might be ways to like keep some of the water out of those areas or things like that. So yeah, it just so everybody, there's only the whole thing only has 7 questions, the grant application. So it's what do you plan to do, when do you plan to do it, and everything must be done by September of 30th of 2023. Who is the proposal intended to benefit? How will it build excitement, momentum, knowledge, and or support for safer streets and active mobility in your community? And notably, like they're really interested in hype. So like any sort of media component of this is definitely going to help to get this thing over the line. So if we were to produce a brochure that got mailed to every recipient, or like something like that, if they were able to make their mailing list available to us, and we could sort of send this sort of stuff out, that would be huge. Partnerships and coordination, right? Describe the extent to which this project is a collaboration or partnership with other community entities, and if you have the support of government agencies in your town or city. So I'm not sure if we have any of those, but we definitely could put the Near Future Laboratory as as one of the partnerships. The promise: what evidence do you have that this project will achieve the desired results? That one's tricky, but at the very least we could probably get people excited. Reach: how will you communicate the impact of your project, i.e. photography, video, writing, local media, etc. Evaluation: how do you plan to evaluate or measure the impact of your project and expenses? Email a budget detailing what you will need to Liza. So simple enough, but something that would need to be like sort of put through pretty quickly. And much like that urban prototyping grant, this one just needs like some clear buy-in from a few people who are really interested in doing this. And basically 50% of the funds become available immediately, and then the other 50% becomes available once we've made some kind of significant progress. And like, yeah, $5,000 is not a lot of money. So whether we're bringing in copywriters or people who are going to do mid-journey sort of stuff, or do any kind of design work that they layer over existing photography, graphic design, printing costs, things like that. Like we could hit $5,000 very quickly. So sort of in line with Julian's whole thing about how we get this thing, how we spread the word about this sort of stuff, like figuring out, who's down to do what for, next to nothing. But, notably, right, like this sort of stuff could lead to, work in San Francisco or things like that, right? Like it's sort of a,
So a couple things, just reflecting. So one thing, it's like, so $5,000 is, as you said, isn't that much, and the timeline is short. So my approach, just me, like if I were just on my own with this, or people are like, look, I just don't have time, which is understandable. I would probably I would see what I can grind out probably in a Saturday afternoon, understanding that chances are probably you know, I don't know what the chances are, but let's say that, you know, they might even look at it and be like, California, it's like, no, we're gonna stay. My cousin and my uncle are up for this. Like, I'm gonna keep it close to home. So just recognizing, and it almost treated like the same way that David and I did the LACMA thing. It's like, I don't care what they're asking for. I'm gonna you know, I'm gonna try to cover the bases, but do something short and sharp. So that would be my instinct. And my sense is that, yeah, I mean, you're just gonna have to really take point on it. To the, you know, yeah, you get this. I mean, you're that kind of guy. You're not like, oh my God, what? Um, and essentially, uh, tell us, you know, start doing it and tell us what you need help with. And is it basically, to a certain degree, like, don't really, I don't know, like, do like, I'm not, this isn't this, I'm trying to think of like, how do you do that? You I guess basically you don't ask what should you do, you do it.
Mhm.
In a certain, you know, I don't it sound like a stupid advertisement for sneakers. Just do it, dude. Yeah, I just put the thing together and just over the, between now and whenever it needs to be postmarked or whatever, just share. This is where I'm at, because and that I think that's where people will kind of come in and contribute and nudge and push. I think that's almost exactly what happened when Dave and I did the LACMA thing. Like, I just started putting together a deck, and I just started having fun. I was like, I'm putting images in, you know, figuring out how to represent it. We didn't get it, but then, you know, David would be there at some point. It's like, hey, let me rewrite this or whatever he did.
I do much better with like, hey, here's an outline, and then I can drop in and kind of like massage things or add a paragraph or like, yeah, clarify the focus of something. But like, I think the real benefit to that was the doing it. And like, even though we didn't get it, like, I think in one of the other threads you mentioned, Julian, that like that just influenced like ABC.
Totally. Totally.
You know, so the doing it was such a good exercise, even though we didn't get the thing. That like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I've got time to help write another one, because like, yeah, just another shot of clarity would be good.
That was amazing. I mean, I opened up that thing the other day because I was trying to see, because I forgot who it was asking about like doing a thing, children's kind of under 16 thing, and I went back to that. Was that you, Ivan? Okay, cool. Because let's talk about that before, definitely before I have to go at 20 past 10. I opened up the thing. I was like, man, this thing is great. Like, I want to use some of that elsewhere. Like, I just thought it was I'm saying something that I made is great. I realize that, but I looked at it and I was kind of like, oh man, that was a moment when we were doing all that solar punk crypto weird stuff, and I was making those factories and headquarters. I love that thing, and it was generative, and it really got me excited about the idea of, Ivan, to the question that you were asking in the Discord, like, oh man, I would love to do, of course, why aren't we doing more stuff for kids? You know, and even that, and I think that the moment that really sparked that was, it was a thing for LACMA. LACMA asked, what angle for your, if we gave you this money, that what would you do for community engagement or something like that, public participation? And my first instinct was like, fuck the public, man. I just want the money so we can do our art project. And then when I thought of, when we went with a whole bunch of other people with young kids. Jed's got some young kids, and we went to LACMA for the Tom Sachs thing. And I was like, this is fucking amazing. We're out it was COVID, you know, so it was like one of the things eased up. And so people were doing stuff outside. And it's like people were there with kids running around. Jed, you sent one of your kids to go piss behind a dumpster. I was like, this is fucking great. This is amazing. Everyone's out here having fun, and we're launching rockets. And so I was like, man, that would be great to do something for kids. Like, look at this energy. Look at this energy. And if you do a thing like, you know, you tell people like, hey, we're doing a public workshop for kids, how to future. Like, what parent would be like, no, I'm not taking my kid to that. It sounds like trouble. Like, oh, future. And you even see now, like, if you look, I know I fetishize Tom Sachs too much, but you look at some of the video from when he did that thing in Paris, it was all parents bringing their kids, you know, to do whatever was going on, get moon rocks or something, Mars rocks. It was beautiful. It just had such good positive energy. Very different energy from doing commercial futures for Samsung.
Yeah, it kind of defaulted to all ages, which I don't even know if he intended, which is a nice, I always find that personally interesting when it can.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, anytime I've gone to, like, when I went to the Mars show and the moon show, even at the Gagosian, like this was like what, 20 years ago? You know, it was a nighttime gallery show. Not many people bring their kids to that, but there were kids there for sure. Are you kidding me? Like we're gonna reenact the Mars landing with, you just kind of like, all right, so it's sort of a lesbian romance, but we won't talk about that with the kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I took the kids to the oh geez, I'm gonna forget the name. What's that kind of really visually pleasing AI work that's been going around? There's
Yeah.
that Jeffrey Deitch right now.
Yeah.
They sat and I mean my 3-year-old sat in front of it for like 10-15 minutes, and I had to like prompt them to get up and go. And I was
Yeah.
like this is pretty captivating.
Yeah.
Is it a Rafik Anadol piece?
Yeah, Rafik Anadol.
Yeah, Rafik, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was last week I took them over there one morning. And yeah, they just sat there mesmerized. I'm like, oh, it's a video show. They'll probably like that. Maybe. So but it worked out.
So those are my thoughts, Aaron.
Cool. Yeah, so okay, thoughts on doing like would you be up for doing a general seminar around this?
By Wednesday, there's no time.
No, not by Wednesday. No. I'm thinking like if we got the grant. Like
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, you tell me whatever whatever you need.
okay, because I have
I'm not sure exactly what you mean by a general seminar around this. What's this?
So let's say we're doing like a mid-speed mobility from network from the future, and like the crown jewel of the project is mid-speed Main Street. Like get a few stakeholders in the room. Like I have a friend whose parents live in Providence, right? And they're, very mobile, very, they're like wealthy enough to travel a bunch. And his mom is, not wheelchair bound, but she uses a mobility scooter. Right. And so like she would be a great person to have in the room to like talk about like what would be good for her. Right. She's traveled all over the world. She's been to Barcelona. She's like knows what's good about like accessibility scooter stuff. And it'd be cool to have her talking, and then put together that kind of stuff. We have, business owner friends who like have worked in Bristol for a long time. At various, composite type industries. Like we could probably just get a few people in the room.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. I'm almost literally like whatever you need. I'm more focused on like, okay, so what can about encouraging you. It's a load. You got to carry it. You get to encourage you to get a proposal in. I would say my instinct is like, don't sweat it too much. Just make something beautiful that people are going to see and just use all your remarkable creative skills that you use when you do your zines and that kind of stuff. Just pour that in there, and maybe even almost think of it as like the basis for a project that we would do anyway. Like the beautiful thing that came out of the LACMA thing, which I proposed that we build like it was a solarpunk crypto universe, and I imagined like we were going to make these actual physical models and it'd be like this great gallery thing. It's like what came out on the other side of that, I think to a large degree, the way I read it was like ABC Solarpunk, the book. Like it felt like there was enough energy around that. That's like, well, fuck it, we're going to build this world anyway. We're just going to do it in the form of a book.
Right, and that's kind of the way that I think of this too. Like I've just been sort of mulling over this idea of mid-speed mobility, and like I'm just looking for an excuse to develop that language in a more robust way.
Yeah, and don't count on these guys to support that. Not that I'm not saying that in a dismissive way, but it's like essentially write the proposal for the project that we're going to do.
Right.
That we're going to do. And if they say like, well, it's got to do this, that, or the other thing, it needs a $5,000 budget. Make up your action items that for what you need, and just make it add up to 5,000. Who gives a fuck? And then if we need to do it, we just figure out, actually, you know what? There's a $250,000 budget. Whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Figure out how to do it. But I do want to get to Ivan, because I definitely want to hear what he has to say before I have to bounce.
Cool.
And but just when I bounce, I'll just give the keys to Dre or someone. Just have
So
to-
should I go?
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So hello everyone. I mean, I kind of new in the community, but I'm working on a project with the London Transport Museum. They wanted to do, let's say, they call like a future lab exhibition. I don't know if you ever been into that museum. It's very full of transport items. It's very loved in London. The museum, the exhibition will be for 7 to 17 years old young people. So very challenging because normally this kind of range is quite different, right? Of course, 7 to 17. And the exhibition will I'm doing this with a group of architects. So we have already the commission, but it's going to start in 2024. So there is time to do I wanted to do a workshop, kind of co-design workshop with schools and kids, using partially, not only, but using partially design fiction methodologies. And of course, I was thinking, like we talk a lot about future, but obviously, like what better to talk about future with kids, like that they are obviously rhetorically the future. And so I was thinking, like, should I reach this community to kind of discuss this and put out there like some kind of, like if there is some kind of already workshop similar to this. My point is that I would like to do a vision of future that is obviously pluralistic, and is maybe not only tech related or technology driven. And I will say it's also important for me, like, I don't know if the museum is very open to this, but a little bit taking a critical approach of this. So who decide what the future is? And I mean, if it's not in the exhibition, for sure, this critical approach should be in the workshop. And this, I think, can be interesting to build some form of like, future fiction workshop for young people.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that, Ivan. I love it. I can kind of I like I love the idea. I mean, again, back to this thing of like, I guess putting more earnest focus on maybe that is the right group. I make this up that like around 8 or 9 is when we're kind of told to stop daydreaming, like stop that, stop being childish, and to I don't know where that goes, but it's like, okay, this is good. It's like, you still have that kind of malleability and flex and kind of whatever brain plasticity. I don't even know if that's a real, that, but you get what I'm saying. And so can we learn how to hold on to that ability to imagine? Go on, Brandel. Oh, Brandel's going. He wasn't waving to say something. So it could be cool. I would, maybe we should kind of, find a place to have that conversation, to begin to develop like what would a workshop look like for 7 to 17, or whatever, for young adults by some measure, that is about imagining, about futuring, about understanding what the future is, even going to first principles, like, but totally authored in a way that is whatever, age appropriate. I'm not saying that we would say anything scandalous, but just like communicates it in a way that is like, oh, okay, I get it. see what you're talking about. This is how it works. This is what this is when I'm feeling this. This is what's going on. You know, when I'm daydreaming, actually, that's perfectly fine. Right? It's encouraged. Like you should, you know, daydreaming. You should become as expert at that as you are at, you know, dribbling a football. You know, whatever. Like that is really something that you need to tap into, or something. I'm just making up a lot of stuff at this point, but it could be, that would be a fun conversation. It could even be like, I don't know, like find a context to have that conversation. I don't know, is it a general seminar? I don't know what the topic is.
Maybe something can also help is that the curator were thinking of a day in the lifetime of the future you, that I was thinking is quite perfect for design fiction, right? Like this idea of projecting you as a visitor of the museum and thinking like of a day in lifetime of the future you, what you will see and what, and obviously it's connected to transportation as well, connecting to the Aaron, and it's because is the transport museum, and obviously as because it's in London, it's connected to all this idea of also future cities and how the transportation will evolve. So in the future.
Yeah, I mean, Ivan, if you really want to dig into that, we could maybe do a one-on-one. Like we haven't met before, but like I make skateboards, teach skateboarding for transportation, and I'm sort of like engaged in this question around like how does the city change once it includes small wheeled mobility devices in its planning, right? Because so much of complete streets planning right now is around walking and bicycling. And my basic thesis is that like those are insufficient archetypes to truly make an accessible city, particularly for people who are marginalized in various ways, from being like women, people of color, queer people, low income people, right? There's just like a whole range of types of access that are barred when you only think about either walking, which is slow, bicycling, which is like broadly very expensive once you actually take into account all of the various, you know, the ecosystem it's within, and same thing with public transit, right? Like it only goes where it goes and it's not free for everybody. So there's a lot of questions that can be raised. You know, I would say skateboarding is sort of like the most useful archetype, but scooters, roller skates, rollerblades, any number of other things can also provide useful insights. So if you want something specific to that, but just send me a message and we can chat.
Sure.
And I'm on there as Daisy.
Yeah, I
you
was
can-
just
I'm
gonna
I'm
say.
in the Trip City thread. But yeah, that's the best place to find me.
I think that like the idea of what is the future, what does the future you look like, is an interesting path to go on. A lot of times when I try to like explain design fiction or like futures design in general, I'm like, I ask people like, well, have you ever like set a goal for yourself? That's kind of like what we're doing in a way. It's like we're going through this process of like telling ourselves a bunch of stories about, you know, what the city in Rhode Island could look like, and then we're going to choose the best one, or we're telling ourselves a bunch of stories about like the career we want to have, and then we work towards the one that feels the best to us. And I think bringing imagination to kind of like the forefront is a really cool idea, because I think a lot of times, I guess the way we view imagination is like just something that we have, and it's like, or something that especially like kids have, but like over time we're pretty okay with it kind of falling away. And I think, I don't know, I think it's a, well, I guess when you were talking about like how we should talk to young people, I think that's important, but it's also like what are we talking to them about more broadly? And I think what you got me thinking about is like telling them to kind of hold on to their imagination and like show them where they can apply it, and why it's like it can be a super valuable tool. because I think that's something that like I've kind of rediscovered in the last 2 or 3 years, and like reflecting on it, I think it's something that like I was kind of discouraged to do, or at least not told to do. It wasn't emphasized at all. So
Good stuff, Ivan. This is a good one for sure. Let me know if you need anything like mechanically to help with that, you know, setting up a channel or whatever.
Yeah. Also, will be in September, October, the workshop. So there is a little bit of time to discuss, and that's, I think, is good. So
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
a channel can be a good thing. to
Yeah,
do.
because we could set up a channel and you know, literally anything. Like if you're like, hey, it would be great to schedule an event, you know, just internally, just to say, put a mark in the calendar and say, on this particular day, you know, anyone wants to gather to talk about it and all that kind of stuff. So I can turn to me if you need help, both in the substance of it, which is also which I'm very much interested in, but then the ugly stuff that no one really ever likes to do, which is like, I don't know, corralling people and that kind of thing.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
David, I have a solar punk update for you. Mini update.
Exciting.
Yeah, exciting. So I've been in touch with a couple of printers. I've got 3 of them that I'm talking to right now, 2 of which have actually sent over some estimates. And the one in Hong Kong looks like the most favorable one right now. So I'm gonna post that onto the Notion so that you and I can have a chat about it. We're gonna go to 8 by 8 inches. That's gonna be the size of the page. So what I'll do is I'll rejig an InDesign file. So I've got the information on the page size and bleeds and so on and so forth. But next week is when I'm going to really go hard. I've got a couple things Monday, Tuesday I need to get off my plate, and then I'm just going to go hard next week. And I don't know what your schedule is like, but we should endeavor to try to wrap up all the images for Solarpunk in the near future, as we say.
Yeah,
here.
that sounds good. I think I'll try to take some time off work, even if we just need to get some momentum in for a couple of
Okay.
days.
If you're gonna commit to doing something like that, just let me know and I'll block off some time and make sure that I'm working with you in tandem, and we can just get online and just do that Discord thing that we do where we just kind of jam and bounce ideas off one another.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome.
Let's get it over the line. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's talk next week about this, and we'll schedule something.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Who's seen the Work It Wednesday posts that I do on my Design Fiction Daily blog? I know Julian has.
I'm a recent subscriber to your list. I've been checking out the dailies. I don't think I've
Okay.
seen the Wednesday yet.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, I haven't done a Work It Wednesday for a couple of weeks. I'm kind of saving up for the next one, but I've got in the archives. I think my archives are limited to 2 weeks archives for non-paid, for free subscribers. So maybe I'll expand that to a month so that free subscribers can go back and take a peek at stuff. I would love to get more insight on what people think about Work It Wednesdays in terms of like what I'm offering, what I'm delivering, what seems to be, you know, am I missing something? Is there something that I'm doing too much of or not enough of? That type of thing. So that if you do get a chance to take a peek at one of those, I'll maybe unlock. I think one of the early ones, 1 and 2, are unlocked completely
Why don't you say put shove through the URL here and let's just all look
Okay,
at
you know
it.
what? Hang on. I might have to do some. Might have to do some nozzle reconfiguration because right now I think I've got it set up so anything older than 2 weeks goes into the paid subscriber archive.
That's my tier.
Yeah, that's your tier. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for buying me a bunch of coffee.
Yeah. It's literally a bunch of coffee. That's about it. Like if you-
Literally,
if
well,
you-
or
if-
two fancy juices, according to
Yeah, that's right. 2 fancy juices over the course of a year.
yeah, exactly. Just little sips.
That's right. Yeah, it comes with a very small teaspoon. You pour a little bit out, take a tincture.
Yeah, let me go and find the last work it Wednesday. I'm gonna pop it in the Discord in the what do we call it? The chat log. Where's chat log? I wish there was a Discord channel find tool, like I could just type what I'm looking for.
So many things that Discord needs help with. Dre, I'm gonna give you the keys because
All
I
right.
just got the I got the high sign that I'm due to
He's outside your
For
door.
the-
I'm here to pick you up, man.
the airport run. Let me do this.
I can't find the chat log. Oh, I found it. It's at the bottom of the front deck. Here we go. Boom. This is the last one that I did. It was, I guess, issue 11 of Work It Wednesday. March 29th. So I don't know if anyone can see that.
Oh, you put it in the Discord.
Yeah, I put it in the Discord.
I'm just seeing it now. Let's see.
Cool. That one might be paid after a while. I think you can try and unlock it. Edit the post.
I mean, I just love these. There's nothing that like the one you did. It was the not it wasn't SketchUp. SolidWorks was it?
Oh, SolidWorks, yeah.
SolidWorks. It's just. I mean, just I think that so I don't know. I don't know what else you can do, but the visual. It's almost like what might be interesting to think about. We've been thinking about this for the sheep cards. If there were just like some kind of lockup that brought it all together in one visual. I don't even know if this is a good idea, but
Yeah, what
so
what does the box set box look like?
wait,
Or what does
are we talking about the same thing?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. You were talking about a lockup. I find that like sometimes creating a box, like what is if the cards in the book all come in a box set, like what does the box look like? And that usually helps inform like what the visual might look like.
Well, I was thinking like, okay, so if okay, we might be talking. We're building on each other. So like,
Yeah.
if there were like if it's someday you're like, you know what, I'm going to publish the book of all the design fiction dailies,
Mhm.
For 2023. That's an idea. That's a thing.
Yeah.
So how would it look like? Like you might have if it were like an image and text thing, like an image with the concise explainer text, so what you have here, which I'm not saying get rid of, but you've got like the long narrative, but can I get the whole thing in just one shot? Like,
Yeah.
here's the ad for the thing, and now on the other side, it's like, oh, this is the story. This is how I did it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay?
I've been
Front of scene, behind the scene.
I've been thinking about a few things like when I do the dailies, they're
And now
usually
I have to go.
all right.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You can just watch the video after you've left.
I'll watch the video. I'm so sorry. And I wanted to
No
hear from
worries.
Kemp and Filippo's here. But I got to drive the missus to the airport. Otherwise, it's going to be hell to pay.
Or else someone's walking a long, long way.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you guys.
All right. See ya.
All right, bye. Dre, well, I've looked at a few of them. If I'm understanding what you guys were getting at there, it's sort of about maybe framing them all in a way where there's a consistency among posts, and is that sort of where it's going, or or is it totally different thought?
I think there's more of a behind the scene, like and not totally different. I think that with the thing with Work It Wednesdays is because I'm using the work kit to prompt stuff, and I'm trying to condense it. I'm trying to make it 90 minutes of effort. Otherwise it'll take all day. So I'm going for like quantity over quality. I'm just trying to get it done. So I'm not being hypercritical. I'm trying not to procrastinate. There's usually like there's the think part followed by a break, and then there's the do part. And the way that I write it is I open up the Substack article and I write it in real time. Like as I'm working, I just write. So a lot of the tense is like present tense, or you know, speaking about the thing I'm about to do, followed by like the image that I just did. So with the Work It Wednesdays, the way that I can get speed out of creating this is that I created these GPT-3 one-shot prompts for design fiction, where I basically have a prompt that says, this is what the game is. Here's the cards that are in the deck, and I want you to ask me one card at a time what I picked, and then from there I want you to use those cards to come up with ideas. And that's just that's a single prompt, and I hit go and it just starts asking me questions. I fill it out, and then after the fifth question, the fifth card, it just generates something. What I've noticed is what it generates is not great, but it's getting better. Every time I tweak it a little bit, I see what it's doing wrong. So I just kind of tweak the prompt a little bit, but I end up taking over, like the man in the middle, or the supervised learning, or the human in the loop, whatever you want to call it. It's me overriding what it's done, but it did the beginnings. It sparked an idea. So so I show the details, like I show the sausage getting made. So I show like, here's the three different outputs that it generated. I might comment on what I liked and didn't like about the outputs, and then I just go and do something. So you see how I change it. And then I get into some technical stuff, like, you know, I'm going to render something in Midjourney. I'm going to bring it into Photoshop. I'm going to up-res it in Topaz. And I just do all this like more tutorial type of stuff, because a lot of people ask me about how I can achieve high quality so consistently. And you know, a lot, it's just templates. It's just, I'm not designing anything from scratch. I'm using templates and art generators to get things done really, really quickly. I just happen to know how to mask, and I understand shadows in Photoshop. So that's an example of what I do. But questions I have are like, is it too detailed? Is it too techie? Should there be more thinking around writing around the thinking and less around the doing? I'm just curious about that. I'd love to get more. I want to fine tune this into something. But I think what Julian was saying is that, you know, now that I'm on my 5th month of doing daily design fictions, like almost every single day, like I have enough for a book right now. And if I took the best of for the year and I condensed it into a couple of hundred design fictions, that could be nice double page spreads that you open, that you get to just enjoy the design fiction, get to soak it all in, and maybe turn the page, and then the page gets into detail about like what I did. What I also do when I write my design fiction, I do a little bit of storytelling, where I assume the time travel blogger persona with the janky time machine. So I always mention that I'm traveling around in a janky time machine, and but those are always related to like things I've done in the day. So like the SolidWorks one I did the other day is because I'm speaking at an industrial design conference on Tuesday. So I thought I would do a couple of industrial design related design fictions. So when I pump my own tires at the conference, people will go. But I like this idea of like speaking design into existence. And then yesterday, somebody tagged me on a post on LinkedIn where someone from Google had posted a Lego set. It was like a climate change Lego set, where it was like a flooded city and it looked really, really beautiful. It was a piece of design fiction, and he was making a call saying like anybody who wants to join this fake artists collective of people doing this. So I got inspired and I created the Doomsday Barbie today. I posted it while we were
Yeah.
talking, and that's a direct response to what happened there. Even the Amazon Yearn, which was like an Alexa meets an urn, like that was just a couple days after my dad died, just a couple weeks ago. And you know, I take the things that are happening in my life and I inspire what I'm doing. Nice. Look at that. Julian's got his road fit on.
Where's
He's got on the highway to the airport. I was rocking that look last week. Orange shirt and a gray vest and driving in a car with an upward pointing angle.
well, I don't know if I see that channel.
Oh, I see it here, but yeah, the at any rate,
Drew, where is Doomsday Barbie? What? thread?
if you just go to designfictiondaily.com,
Yeah,
it's the
Oh.
most recent post.
I saw that come in sort of at the beginning of the conversation today.
Yeah, I was literally just writing it as we were finishing, as we were starting up office hours. I just wanted to get it out of the way so I could.
Well, how long did that one take to put together? Just
I
curious.
started that at about 9:30 this morning, and with some distractions in between, so probably took about 2 hours to do it in total, like if
Yeah.
I concentrated all the work without distractions.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a Mid-Journey render of a Barbie on Doomsday Barbie on the bike that I wanted in the background. Then I had to do Doomsday Barbie in a box, but I didn't like the Barbie that was in the box, so I took the Barbie out of the box and I rendered a different Barbie and I put her in the box. And then I used a Chat GPT to just basically say, hey, I want a post-apocalyptic Barbie doll, come up with a bunch of names for her. And there was Doomsday something Barbie, and I just chose Doomsday Barbie. I thought that was good. And then I said, give me a whole bunch of lines, like taglines for the product. So like saving the world one outfit at a time was one of the lines that I liked. And then I said, give me catchphrase. I want some catchphrases for her. So surviving in style was like, yeah, that's good. Survive in style. That's a good catchphrase for her. So I put it all together, found some logos, smashed it up, and I'm pleased with this one. It's the ones that it was such a last minute decision to do it, and I got excited about it. And these are the ones that are my favorite.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the image is really fun, this one. The Barbie. Sorry, guys.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only seeing the one for the AI accountability, but just mostly what I can say is that this is very generous. The fact that somebody could follow your steps, you know, and get all the way there, like your sharing of the prompts and stuff is really something.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed the magic shows where the magicians reveal the secrets. I like knowing how stuff is made. So so in the spirit of like just kind of sharing, but I also recognize though that even though I'm sharing the recipe and I'm showing the secrets, there's a lot of people who just have a barrier. They just don't go beyond the recipe. They don't get in the kitchen. They don't make the cake. They just go back to watching Food Network and eating chips.
Right. Well, yeah, there's well, they have to learn how to be a cook a bit, you know. Not everyone can cook an egg, even though you say cook an egg. Like
Yeah.
I look at it and I'm not that familiar with the tools so much, you know. So yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
I
So
see the ingredients.
Yeah, so I don't feel threatened by sharing. I think a lot of people would feel threatened. It's like, oh, they're going to come and take my shit. But as we talked about it earlier, it's not about a competition. I think there's a lot, especially with design fiction. It's such a small thing that could be so widely used everywhere that I feel like, you know, all ships rise with the lack of gravity. So I think we just like suck the gravity out of the room and everyone goes up.
Can I ask just like a general question about ChatGPT?
Sure.
do you do all of these within the same conversation? And also, like, do you know whether or not, like, within one conversation, like, is there a benefit to doing these sorts of things within the same conversation or not, right? Like, does it retain some amount of like learning from what
Yeah.
you
So
given?
it retains about 800 words of learning, or 800 tokens, 8,000 tokens of learning. So what I call it priming and prompting. So I create a new chat and I prime the chat. And by priming the chat, I'll say something like, you are a insert the thing that I want you to be. You are a something expert. And what that does is it focuses the microscope. So rather than looking at the web, it's looking at a part of the web. You are a experienced toy designer. You are going to invent a specific type of toy, blah, blah, blah. You could do it like that. So by priming it and setting it up early on and then giving it the rules. So I like doing one-shot prompts. I like doing something where I'll say, you're going to ask me a series of questions that you need to know about what's going on. And you're going to stop and let me answer each question before you give me your recommendation. You can just do that and hit the go button, and then it drives. And it feels like you're programming in English, which is another proponent of like English being the next big programming language. So I think that yes. And so and then you can do all your follow-up questions. So you can say, let's say if it gives you a list of 10 options, I could say, oh, I like option number 4. Can you blow that out a little bit? And it knows what option number 4 is, and it'll blow it out. And then if it goes off track, you can say, hey, the last few answers weren't, we're veering off course. Could you go back a few steps and return to that tone of voice, let's say? So yeah, it's good to keep a project in one conversation. And then if you go beyond 8,000, then 8,000 tokens, then it'll be like the last 8,000 tokens. And it's usually contextually appropriate. So you can keep doing that. So whenever I shift gears and I have a new project or a new idea, I just create a new chat and I do it in there.
Okay. And so what makes a token? Like, is that an instance of an exchange, or
a token in GPT world is a grouping of 4 to 6 letters, I believe.
oh wow.
And it's 4 to 6 letter prediction. And that's how it does it. It predicts 4 to 6 letters, and then it predicts the next 4 to 6 letters and the next 4 to 6 letters. So it's not predicting words, it's predicting letters. And those tokens are turned into binary. Like you have to, when you create a data model, it creates this weird binary thing. So it's literally just predicting numbers that turn into letters segmented in 4 to 6 characters, and it looks like conversational English. Like, I don't get it, but it works awesome.
Okay. I asked because, like, my skateboarding for transportation GPT conversation is like, it's 100 pages long when I copy and paste it to Google Docs.
Oh.
And so like I sort of have this ongoing question, like, well, how much of this am I still talking to, or is it all a wash? And I asked because, with your stuff too, because the sort of way to bring this back is like, people can't steal I wasn't sure whether you were creating this within one large conversation,
Mm-hmm.
where like, even if people took your recipe, they couldn't take, the history with which you've, done all of this other stuff.
Yeah. And I'm pretty transparent about the history. I usually show everything as I'm doing it. But for what you're doing, a good thing to do would be to highlight the parts in your doc that you think are the most salient and impactful responses or conversation volleys that you had with it. And you could create a new chat and say, hey, we had this discussion and this is what was said, and paste that all in there. And it's like, please use the above as a reference for the conversation to follow. And that's a way of priming the bot before you start prompting it.
Got it. Yeah, that's really helpful. Just specifically with your stuff, I mean, the one thing I could think of is just like like consistent organization, or even just like a nav at the top. So if people, wanted to see like, okay, cool, here are my ChatGPT exchanges, here's like my just so that people can start to have a consistent way to browse through the stuff.
Mhm.
I'm imagining that you're just doing this like in a blog format, right? Like you're not
Yeah.
doing, like particular web design per se, right? But like a few anchor links and stuff like that at the
I have
top.
to see what Substack offers. I use Substack, so I'm limited to what it can do.
Mhm.
Like it doesn't even put images next to one another. I have to actually go in Photoshop and physically put them in next to one another if I want to create a gallery, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. I'm hoping they fix that up soon. But yeah, the Substack was written for long form writers, like journalists tend to write on Substack. But what I do is so short form. It's chiefly visual. But I'm going to look into anchor links and see if I can make it snap to different areas. I think that's a good point. Take people to where they're most interested in.
Yeah, you might be able to get some sort of like cross post navigation too. It's like at the bottom of any given section, you're like, oh, are you interested in seeing other prompts? Check out the prompt from this other one. And it's almost like a mini table of contents.
Yeah.
So that people can either, move post to post, or they can move like section to section across different instances.
Yeah. I'm going to pay attention to what Substack allows and see what I can do with that.
Right. Is there a way to go look at like the work kit Wednesdays all easily?
The easiest way is to become a paid subscriber, and then you get you unlock all of the Work It Wednesdays, and you have to go to the archive. You just scroll down to the archive. It goes back to as far as December.
Oh, I see. Yeah. It's funny. It's like I'm on the Design Fiction Daily, and I see the one you the Work Kit Wednesday, the 011, but then and a minute ago I was seeing all your prompts and whatnot, but now I'm not. Like that. Did I? Oh, there it is. I'm
Yeah,
not.
you should be able to see it
Scroll far
now.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to keep scrolling. Yeah, I unlocked that one while we were talking to make it available.
I got you. Yeah.
Normally what happens is I stop it and I make it so that after this point, if you want to see how the sausage is made, you need to pay.
Yeah.
You need to add some cheddar to the sausage. But yeah, I'll keep it unlocked for a few more hours, and I'll probably lock it back up again and later.
Yeah. Well, tell me again. I mean, we've talked about a bunch of things now. What was the initial questions you had for the group about this? Now
What's working, like just what's working and what's not working. Like I am showing how the sausage is being made in the Design Fiction on the Work It Wednesday, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just curious, like, does it get too technical at one point? Does it get not technical enough? Do people want to hear more of the thinking? How am I thinking about things? Just general peer review, constructive criticism, what's working, what's not working. Am I going overboard by showing 3 different results that I end up not using in the end? That type of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's great to hear you talk about the process of how how you're using these tools and how you created the tools. But that's different than maybe looking at a post every day or going through them for sure. Like how you just described it to us, is that, do you have a post on that in a sense, like or a place?
No, and you know what? I think that's a good point. I think I should do a post talking about how I do Work It Wednesdays, and then I should also do a post about like what design fiction is, because I think people just don't. That should be the boilerplate at the bottom, because a lot of people just don't know what design fiction is.
Yeah.
And so I think explaining that is good. There's a lot to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess your interpretation of design fiction as the creator here for all this content. seems good. And then I think, I mean, I personally just find it very interesting to hear the, your process of how you created the tools and how you use the tools. And then that just kind of gives me more insight into, if I am seeing them come through my email or whatever it is, every day. That having the more insights into how they're created, I think is fascinating. And I mean, I just kind of started tuning into them and reading them recently. So I've been enjoying them. Like I saw the SolidWorks one, maybe that was yesterday or a couple days ago. I thought that was cool. Yeah, I'm just gonna I guess I'm just sort of getting a feel for them, in real time from day to day, or looking at them when I see them.
Yeah, I try to keep it short.
Right, yeah,
Yeah, the SolidWorks one was fun.
yeah.
Camille, long time. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Doing okay. How's school?
Finals has been a struggle this semester. School is okay. I have big ideas and it's hard to chunk them into small pieces because I feel
Yeah.
infinitely capable. It's kind of my disease.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, but trying to be systematic. Rex is doing well. In case you guys are curious, he's living his best life.
Awesome. WB.
Yes, white balance. For
Yeah.
those of you in the video call who don't know his long history of walking in front of the camera.
Yeah, walking in front of the camera and then like white balancing, the auto white balance would happen.
So something I'm thinking about right now is like, I feel like when people talk about AI in like future narratives and stuff, they talk about it as like a singular entity, right? Like, oh, the artificial intelligence, like as in sort of they're all connected. How do you guys feel about that? Does it make sense to you?
That's an interesting. Yeah, I mean, you immediately made me think like, okay, well, how do we think of it as like a hammer or a screwdriver instead of like a consciousness?
Yeah.
It's like
Because
describing the entire industrial revolution or like the internet in its entirety, right? There's so many different parts of the internet. Like email alone was mind-blowingly transformative, and we just take it for granted now. I still am amazed every time I send an email. I'm like, wow, look at that thing go. Like in no time it got there. And that's just email. So yeah, I think AI as a catch-all term is it's also not really the right term.
no, it's a misnomer.
Yeah.
And it gives it more credit than it deserves, right? Like the only reason I feel like people think about it as a threat is because they sort of personify it because it's described as an intelligence, right? I mean, not the only reason, but in the past, I feel like, that's why people call it co-creating, like no one calls it co-creating with a screwdriver. No one calls it, co-creating, with a hammer, but because it's an intelligence, right?
I co-created this hole in my drywall with a hammer. Did you make that hole? No, I co-created that.
Exactly.
Like kids could start using that.
Yeah. Even the term artificial, I don't know how people perceive that. I kind of, is it sort of negative, or I don't know, like artificial is,
Yeah, I know that apparently the guy who coined the term artificial intelligence back in the 50s or 60s regrets using those words. It's like it's not the right way to describe it.
I think this is my favorite form of creative work. Ultimately, like trying to pick language within an imperfect language, to try to help people into it through the world. I don't know, like having done whatever design, photography, whatever else, like copywriting, just like and defining paradigms, term creation is definitely my favorite. So I don't know. I'd be curious to think of like what the alternatives might be, and like what are the use cases for it, and it's like everything from, filling spreadsheets to writing college entrance essays or, therapy, right? Like those are all so different.
Yeah, there's so many uses for I'm my favorite is just Chat GPT. Just playing with GPT is my favorite of all of the AI stuff that I'm goofing around with. But the like talking about therapy, like you can prompt GPT, you can prime GPT to say that you are a therapist and you're going to ask me a bunch of questions about this and that and so on and so forth, and it'll just do that. It does a really, really good job at playing the role of a therapist and pulling you to say things. Like there's so many things that you can do. And then yesterday I had an idea for a new board game concept that's around the Design Fiction Daily that I'm doing. So I started asking it to come up with some ideas for me. And as it came up with ideas, I found myself realizing like, oh, this is it. This is the raw material for this board game. So I just told it to restate the idea in a 2-column table. So it would give me the name and the description. And I could just copy that cool 2-column table directly into Airtable and boom, like everything is just working really, really quickly. So I like the creative aspect of what it can do. And I like the technical aspect that it can use stuff like Markdown. There's a new thing. I don't know if you've used this flowchart tool in Notion, but it's a flowchart tool that uses a scripting language. And I can't remember what it's called. It's called like Mango or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's hang on a second. I'll tell you what it's actually called because I was just chatting with a buddy of mine who
I've migrated most of my like note taking to Obsidian. Is anyone using that?
Yeah, I used Obsidian and I like that it's all Markdown based, but I don't like that it's all Markdown based.
Yeah, it's nice for pick and choose, but it's nice because the community plugins and stuff, you can like add, Chat GPT and stuff like that, like fairly proficiently.
That I have to figure out. So, okay. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So Mermaid is what it's called. It's a flowcharting scripting language called Mermaid. I bet you that Obsidian probably has a plugin, Mermaid plugin. But what you could do is you could say, make me a flowchart of something and format it as Mermaid, and it'll format, like ChatGPT will format it in Mermaid script that you can paste into Notion or possibly even Obsidian, and then it creates a visual flowchart for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's a thing.
Or something related to engineering. Like there's like something missing in my brain that allows me to think this way. And I mean, it doesn't have to be school, but like just knowing what to start thinking about. This is, I don't know, Camille, like you're talking about, like the infinite possibility, the sense of that, like how to map that onto some kind of set of tools, that is produces results.
Well, I'm waiting for the human confidence crisis. I think is going to happen. Like we're entering a point where like a lot of white collar labor is not a specialty anymore, and it can be totally replaced by so many of these chat tools, right? Like in a society where a lot of external validation happens from career and workplace, and that's how people get paid, right? Like now there's going to be some weird vacuums, and I'm trying to figure out kind of how can we like teach and communicate people like value to people, like, and I think this is something that you kind of learn over time. But yeah, like I'm just chewing on that a little bit. I was socialized in an environment that was like very work productivity focused. So a lot of like the perceived value for me was like by sort of how much I could achieve. And now that labor doesn't have the same kind of like value as it once did, in that, like one person can like do all these things that traditionally, many people would have to do. Like, I'm curious how that's going to affect humanity on like a more meta scale. Sorry, I know these are big questions for a
Yeah.
Friday morning before
Well,
noon.
I also like to keep in mind that you know, we are living in our like Western bubble.
Fair.
Like, how much is people thinking about this in Thailand and in Africa? And like, there's other parts of the world that like, they're like, you silly people with your computer toys,
Oh, your computer problems.
your
Like,
all your
wow,
computer
it's a
problems,
struggle.
mo computers, mo problems, right?
Yeah, I feel like there has to be a mocap joke in there somehow.
Get rich or AI trying. Which I actually made that shirt. It's on my Etsy store.
Nice. Nice. Well, I hope you put it in Refusion, you know, and make a version of that song.
I don't know if I know that song.
I think it's a song. I feel like it's a line in a song.
But I like your idea of a confidence crisis, a human confidence crisis.
Well, I feel like that's gonna happen. I don't know, like, I think it's gonna happen in a pocket, and in some ways I feel like it's already happening, right? And that's kind of the fear response to a lot of these AI tools, you know, is the human confidence kind of crisis response. You know, because I feel like a lot of that fear is not coming from like people who are necessarily creative, right? It's coming from office worker, it's coming from people who do administrative work. They're like, fuck, you know, like 90% of my job is going to get automated. What the fuck am I going to do? Like, you know, am I going to get retained? Right? I don't know. You guys can disagree.
Yeah, I think there's what's that book, Bullshit Jobs?
Yes, all of those jobs.
yeah.
That's what I mean, but that's so many of the jobs.
Yeah, so many of the jobs. Basically, any middle manager is redundant. I think what's going to happen is that stuff like paralegals, for instance, like in the legal world. That's one of the things they're talking about, is that the paralegal sector is at risk because it takes a lot of time and effort for paralegals to sift through documents and find those patterns and find those details that you can now just get a bot to just do that for you really, really quickly. So I don't think the paralegals are going away. I think the paralegals who don't know how to use AI are going away. And the paralegals that know how to use AI, the paralegals that know how to feed a bot a data model, like, oh, we're going to go to the case law repository and we're going to collect all this type of case law and be the human that makes the decision as to what we're going to train the model on. They're not going anywhere. If anything, I think they're gonna thrive. But I mentioned it in a conference that I spoke at, that it's like AI is not going to steal your job. It's someone using AI that's going to steal your job.
Yeah, but I feel like then like it's less people, right?
Yeah, there'll be fewer people that are going to be doing that type of work. But at the same time, I think there's a line where like, look at the young generation right now who are buying dumb phones instead of smartphones. They're just bucking the trend. They're just, you know, we don't want smartphones. We see what it's done to the world. We've seen what it's done to our parents. Like, the entire world is killing themselves by sleeping in and scrolling on TikTok. And so they want to be in communication with one another. So they buy a dumb phone, and it's all very retro and cool. And they're just going to do their own thing. They're going to like, yeah, we don't need this AI shit. They don't need to, like, they can make they'll find ways of creating their own communities and selling their own things to one another and writing books and reading what humans like. I have zero interest in reading books written by AI like that. Like, I don't think I would be that interested in reading. I'm super fascinated about writing books using AI. But I don't, if I knew it was written by AI.
Yeah, AI is means of consumption or creation, not consumption.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the creation is going to outnumber the consumption, and people just stick to the authors that they want to read and the artists that they, you know. I kind of don't know if I want AI art on my walls. Like, maybe in a digital real-time screen would be kind of fun, but I like the idea of a real painting that somebody did something on. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be
Yeah, but
some-
AI also curates, right? Also,
It
the
does,
algo
yeah.
is curating for you anyway. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, AI is making the things, AI is deciding the things, right?
Was it like well, it's deciding the things, it's doing the things. Like, I'm still waiting for the day where entertainment becomes like, oh, I want to watch, what was I heard David Cho saying something along the lines of like, I want to watch Ozark, but I want it to be a Korean cast and I want the ending to be different. And then AI
Yeah.
can just like, okay, that's interesting. Let's see what happens when the world gets there.
Well,
people-
like, I don't know. I feel like that's going to create like more sort of fractured pockets, right? I feel like so much of the way people start conversations now with other people, at least I've noticed, is on the basis of entertainment. Because I went through a period of time where I didn't watch any television. And people would start conversations with me like, oh yeah, like what shows what are you into? And it was like, oh, I watch TV. And then they were just kind of like, oh, like what do you do? And then that's this whole other conversation.
Remember Game of Thrones conversations? Ugh. I
Just
never
like,
watched it, but
yeah, conversations around these like kind of cultural touchstones where like, at least in the Western world, it's kind of assumed that everyone subscribes to this, right? Like, and that's like how people organize their life. And like, we're past that now because of streaming, I feel like. But I know some people who are like, oh yeah, like really excited for next Ted Lasso episode, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, that's nice. Like, does this mean like we can't ever hang out when this show comes out because you need to be at home watching it as soon as it comes out? Like, and for some people, yeah, because that's how they organize their time in their life, around their work schedule, around their kind of consumption schedule. I don't know. So when that's kind of no longer as sort of universally distributed as it is now, I'm just like, we're going towards this like sort of fracturing decentralization pockets. And apparently there's this like pattern of decentralization to centralization that happens within technologies. So I'm curious what that may look like.
What's an example of that?
Like I would argue, so I'm bringing up this argument. It's based on the book called The Master Switch. Sorry. I want to find specific book examples because I was talking about the energy industry and what happened if it moved direction. But I was talking about this because I was thinking about like, oh, like, what would happen if energy sort of became more decentralized and how it is now? And the argument was like there's a period of openness with technology and then, basically a corporation owns it and then like shuts down the access to it, right? And like, and I feel like we're seeing that in ChatGPT, right? Especially with that like letter that was written and signed by like a bunch of, smart people that's like, we need to stop all development on this before we examine the consequences. I assume you guys heard about that.
Yeah.
Which I think it's like, bro, it's too late. Like,
Yeah.
y'all fucked up.
The
Like,
genie's,
you can't.
genie's out of the toothpaste tube.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, this talks about case study of the telephone. By the time the telephone's patent expired in 1894, hundreds of independent telephone services had appeared, which allowed for the open phase of the telephone. Everyone could tinker with the new technology. But then it basically gets acquired, or it gets like shut down or managed, or it becomes, like a utility, right? And so then it inherently becomes like government or institutional managed. Like with, that's like kind of whenever there's like bills about the internet, I'm always kind of hyper cautious, especially with this like banning TikTok sort of nonsense that's like just like a smokescreen for fucking advertisers because TikTok is eating everyone's lunch. But yeah. So thinking about that I don't know, sorry, I'm doing a lot of high level thinking.
You're
And I love-
buffering.
Yeah, well, I love walking into this conversation, have you like super technical, hyper specific. We're talking about tools, and then I'm like, why do we call this intelligence, guys? Like, let's like zoom out.
I think it's
Yeah,
great.
Um,
No,
yeah.
you're doing good. I think I gotta drop as well, but
All right,
yes,
thumbs up to
yes,
your
maybe
comment.
it's time. Nice to
Okay.
see all of you.
just getting started.
I'll-
All right, see you guys later.
I'll chew on that. Bye.
All right, see ya.